everyone, and good evening, and welcome to another show of Musician Chat. Today, I've got a very interesting person. He has worked with many famous people, including T Rex, Lulu, and knows all the famous stars. He also runs his own company called Barry Tomes Media Group and has a lot more to offer. So, I'm going to bring in today Barry Tomes. Barry, hello, how
Hello.
are you doing?
Good evening, Alice. Good evening, everyone. How you doing, kids? You all right?
Yeah. I'm sure they're all right out there. They're all right out there. Barry, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you very
It's lovely
much.
to be on. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored by that. Thank you.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah. So obviously you've got quite a lot of stories to tell, I can imagine. But first of all, just for people that don't know you, that have clicked on the channel or have heard this interview,
Mhm.
um, what are you all about?
Well, I consider myself really to be a publicist. That's what I would say. I am a publicist. However, I'm a kid from a council estate that did really, really well. I own my own record company. I own a media company. I'm about to launch a TV channel next week in America. I manage lots of artists. I travel all over the world, and I've been doing it for 53 years. But I still consider myself just a lucky kid from a council estate, really, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, obviously you grew up as a, normal person having a normal background. So when was that
Yeah, and I
lucky
had a
break?
building job as well. I had a building job as well.
You had a building job, so I guess that was like, going out from 9 till
Well, no,
5
probably
doing.
from seven, I would say. I started my own building company when I was 15, but I'd been doing building with other people and helping them since the age of about 12, 13, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mm.
so what was that lucky break for you? When did you get into your first break of being in the music industry and media, etc.?
Well, the music industry was a very odd and certainly unexpected one. As I say, I'd been working from about 12, 13 doing building and really, really enjoying it, like enjoying the hard work, enjoying the outdoor life, enjoying the camaraderie with other builders and that. So then I had a girlfriend who was a fan of a rock star called Elvin Stardust, who had lots of hits in the 70s and into the 80s, as well as Shane Fenton in the 60s. So he changed his name in the 70s. Um, and she was just really on him. I was a big T-Rex fan. We were both T-Rex fans. We liked the Sweet and Slade and all that in the early 70s. And then she said to me, I've got tickets for a television show called 45. And I said, why would you want to go to a television show? She said, well, because it's a pop show. It's like Top of the Pops, but it's on ITV. Alvin Stardust is on. I'm a big fan. And I said, well, great. Of course we'll go. I'm happy to go. But the idea of a television show is you watch it on television, in my opinion, at that time. So I just said to her, look, we'll go. Where is it? Manchester. Okay, so we booked a coach. We found out that the show finished and there wasn't time to get the last coach back to Birmingham. So we both got jobs. We were both working. So we knew we'd be staying overnight, but we didn't get accommodation, couldn't really afford it. So we finished up sort of sitting on a bench in Piccadilly Station in Manchester afterwards. But at that show, it was great. There was a lot of artists on. It was hosted by a Radio 1 DJ called Kid Jensen. A lot of people will know him as, and I think he still broadcasts now. And then after the show, there was an audience, probably, I don't know, maybe 100, and we were there. And I was more fascinated, to be honest with you, Alice, the way they moved sets. When one artist finished, the set would change in about 30 seconds. A brand new set would come on into the play and be on telly. It was that fascinated me as a builder, how quick they did it, how it was built, the construction and all of that. So I was enjoying that, but of course I was enjoying the music, and I was just happy to be with my girlfriend. And afterwards, when they started clearing out, she said, "Oh, I wonder if we could meet Alvin." I said, "Well, there's nobody here. They've all gone." I said, "We'll probably get thrown out at a minute with everybody." Well, what happened? It was quite strange, Alice. Everybody was.
Oh, oh my goodness, we just lost Barry. Wait a minute. Hold on,
The
Barry,
chair.
Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you just went off the screen for a minute at the end of the day. At the
Oh,
end of the
really?
day.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
I'm here. I haven't disappeared, lovely. I'm here. Don't worry.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
so we were there, and there the chairs were being packed away and the equipment. And I said, well, look, I don't know. Let's see if we can find out. Well, nobody was talking to us because they were all too busy packing things away. And then I said, there's a guy over there, a really big guy, looked like a minder. And I went over and said, hello, mate. Was he 17? I was he very young? I said, I hope you don't mind me asking, any chance at all of speaking to Alvin Stardust? And I thought he was going to say, go on, bugger off, get out of here. But he didn't. He smiled. He knocked the door behind him. And the door opened, and we were just absolutely astonished because standing there in a red poncho and his black leather gloves and his rings, and people will know Alvin was famous for all that stuff, was Alvin Stardust. And he was, hello, how are you doing? And we got a cassette player with us, which we took with us, and we recorded an interview with him. And this is well over 40 years ago now. And we got talking to him, and he said, did you like Fable? Because that was some of the band was on he really liked. And then he said, well, look, how'd you get back tonight? So, no, we're sleeping on the bench at Piccadilly. And he said, we've all done that, following our favourite pop stars. Just be safe. Thank you for coming. And we met a girl with him who was called Jenny Mills, but her nickname was Jenny Moonbeam. And Jenny was his PR girl. And after the show, we were chatting to her as well. And she said, thank you for coming. She said, I've only started working for Alvin today. I don't know anything about him. I don't know his songs. She normally worked on Wimbledon and a thing called the Milk Race. So she said, oh, can I have your number? Maybe if I want any information about Alvin, you can help me. Yeah, of course, it's the phone number. Well, you didn't have a mobile phone then. It was just, your mum's phone at home. So that was us. We were happy. We sat freezing cold on the bench all night. We got the coach about 6:30 in the morning, and we got back to Birmingham. And we both went to work. I mean, we'd been out all night, but we went to work because she had a full-time job in Birmingham and I was building, so there was always work on the go, but I could be flexible with the hours. So then I thought, well, that was amazing. I really enjoyed it. She loved it. She's my girlfriend. I was happy that she was really happy. I wasn't that bothered about being at a television show. I was fascinated about the building that went on. And we never thought no more of it. We came home, and that was recorded like on a Tuesday, I think it was. Anyway, the following week we get a phone call, or my mum gets a phone call saying, "No, it's Jenny Mills here. I met your son Barry Tomes," and he said it'd be okay to call him. So I spoke to her. She said, "Oh, I wonder if you'd like to come to one of Alvin's shows." Well, we'd never seen him live. We'd only seen him do 2 songs on the telly. And I said, well, yeah, where is it? Obviously, I want to bring Jackie. Oh, no, you're both welcome. She said, we're working in Stoke-on-Trent at the Steam Machine, which is Stoke-on-Trent's probably about 50 minutes from Birmingham. I said, well, all right, I'll have to figure out how to get there because we couldn't drive. We were 17. She said, don't worry. She said, I've had a look. There's a train from Birmingham New Street, and I can pick you up at the station in Stoke, and I'll take you to the venue, and I'll drop you back. Okay, fantastic. We got a bus into town. We got on the train. We got off the train. And I remember Jenny had a little white GT6, which was a sports car, which is only 2 seats. And I remember me jumping in, and I was quite tall, and Jackie jumping on my lap, and we're thinking, what are we doing? She drove us to this big posh hotel, which for me, as a kid from a council estate, thought, it's like Buckingham Palace here. She took us in, and we met Alvin, and we talked to him, and he had some lunch. And then we went to the show, and it was a matinee, and I didn't really know how it all worked, but it was a matinee show in the afternoon. And then there was a show on the night for the adults. So we were there selling posters, T-shirts, and it was incredible, really. I've never seen so much money in my life because kids were all throwing the cash across the counter. And so we said, this is amazing, do you do another show today? She said, oh, yeah, we do one tonight. And we said, oh, we'd love to stay. She said, well, I'm sorry, you can't because you're not 18. And we were like, I'd been drinking in pubs since I was 12, but legally you weren't allowed in the club. So we were happy, and Alvin gave us a pair of gloves, and he gave us a star necklace, which I've still got. And I've still got the gloves he gave us, and he gave us some stickers and so on, badges and stuff, and a book. So we came home absolutely thrilled to bits, had a lovely time, really, really enjoyed it. Jackie was just over the moon. She couldn't believe, she'd met Alvin again, and we'd had lunch with him. And that's where it all started for me, really. We finished up running Alvin Stardust fan club. I worked with Alvin for many years, and then I went on to work for Lulu next. But that was the beginning. It was just going to a TV show with free tickets.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. You hear these stories of how people just get in, they get the lucky break. That is amazing. So, up until that point, did you know who Alvin Stardust was, and were you a fan of him?
I knew he was a pop star. I knew that. I didn't realise he'd originally been called Shane Fenton from the '60s. I was more into T Rex. T Rex was really my big band. You know, that was the one I loved, and I did like Slade. She was really into Susie Quattro, Alvin Stardust, and T Rex. So we had T Rex in common. But I had heard obviously Cuckoo had been a massive hit for Alvin, and then Jealous Mind was the number one, and then Good Love Can Never Die came out, and that's roughly when we met him. So I didn't know him before. I'd never met him before. I knew nothing about him other than I'd seen him on Top of the Pops a couple of times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because when T Rex came on the scene, you know, Mark Bolan was like the king of glam rock, as they would call it, if you see what I mean. Um,
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean he started it off really, absolutely.
so you saw that era change basically when T Rex came in and that sort of stuff, and everyone loved Mark Bolan. Um, what was he like to work with?
Well, I didn't work with Mark other than meeting him. He was friends of Alvin, but I didn't do any tours with T-Rex. I saw T-Rex live, I think it was 5 times. But I didn't work directly with Mark. I just, I'd met him. I went to his office in London. I was still at the time working for Alvin, and I worked for Alvin like from about 1974 right through to 1980. But in 1979, we were working on a TV show in Birmingham called Oh Boy, and Alvin introduced me to his manager. His manager's sister was also Lulu's manager. So then Lulu came in and they introduced me to Lulu, and that's how I finished up a year later working for Lulu full time for about 6 years as well.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely great. I mean, now I've got a question to come in actually,
Okay.
from Ricky Armstrong, and you can see it on the
Hello,
screen.
Ricky. How you doing, mate?
Hello, hello. He
Hi, Ricky.
loves
Thanks for coming on.
he loves Mark Bolan. He was his hero. He says, "Hi Barry, I'm Ricky Armstrong from the band Ricky's Double Rabble. We spoke before. I know you knew my hero Mark Bolan. What was your best memory of him?"
I think my best memory of him was when I met him at his offices and I was talking to him about Alvin, and he gave me a signed picture. And I've always said, if my house catches fire, there are two things I'm going to grab. I mean, I best grab the wife, I suppose. That should be automatic. But I would grab my passport and I would grab my signed picture of Mark Bolan. So seeing him live for the first time blew my mind because I mean, I was in awe of T-Rex anyway, and the production was massive, the sound was massive, and he was an absolute star, as was with Alvin. I've been very fortunate in that sense. I've worked with some real, major stars, major people. But with Mark, I think it was when he handed me the signed picture, and I think that was, I think that was it.
Yeah, and obviously, Mark Bolan was, a massive hit, almost what would be called an icon in the 70s.
Well, he still
Did
is.
you?
No, he still is. I mean, his songs still get used in TV commercials. Lots of people still perform his songs. Soft Cell, Mark Allman, people like that adore Mark Bolan. He always plays a T-Rex song, so they're still played, and they still. Well, I mean, he obviously died many years ago, but they still bring in about £10 million a year. His songs
Yeah,
do, and that's a rough estimate. Really, it's probably more.
yeah,
So once you have those hits, and that's why I always say to artists, write your own songs, get your own songs, get your stuff published, get it protected, get it into movies. I mean, I just this week I got one of my artists who's a country artist from the Isle of Wight. I've just got his song in a new TV series called Tulsa King, and Tulsa King stars Sylvester Stallone. Now, if you get a track in a film, which I do, I get tracks in films, then the film goes out, and it used to go to DVD. Well, it don't go to DVD anymore. The good thing with the TV series, I mean, if you take something like Grey's Anatomy or CSI, they go all over the world. So if you get a song in a show like that, you could earn $30,000 with all the repeat fees and when it goes around the world. We just
yeah,
signed a contract, as I say, to have a track with Sylvester Stallone. And as I say, Mark's been dead many years, but the songs are still making money. And his son, Roland, he gets some of that money now. He didn't originally, but he does get some of the money now. And it's a legacy that you leave. The money keeps coming in.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So obviously, like Mark Berlin was obviously very professional, and he understood his music and stuff. So did you ever see him at any time become out of character or not himself?
Oh yeah, I think personally he went to yeah, he had lots of hits in England. He had lots of hits all over the world, really, Japan and Europe. But he only ever had one hit in America, and he had a number one here with "Get It On," and he also had a number one in America with a song called "Get It On." But in America, they were made to change the name to "Bang Your Gong," and I do have a copy of that American single, and that was because Marvin Gaye had a song out at the time called "Get It On." So rather than have confusion, they changed the title. What I thought Mark's downfall, or certainly a low point, and again, it's not casting aspersions on him, when he went to America, he seemed to me to just become very bloated. There was a lot of talk he was doing drugs. Who knows whether he did or didn't, but he certainly changed. The songs were still there. I mean, he really tried hard to crack America, and you can't. It's so difficult. You need to be there for 2 or 3 years, really. Of course, he met Gloria Jones, his girlfriend, and of course, the mum of his son. And the sound of T Rex changed. It changed to disco, really, because I mean, I know, I knew Gloria. She wrote "Tainted Love," which was a hit for Soft Cell, and one of my artists, Norma, she worked with Gloria. They wrote some songs together, so I knew Gloria, but she was more soul music, and Mark went into a bit of soul. But then he bounced back a while later and came back with New York City, which was incredible. That was his first hit again in a while. And then he went on and he did Dandy in the Underworld, which was an incredible album. And I've got a rare copy of that. There was only 1,000 pressed with a special gatefold sleeve. And I think I've got number 986, I think it is. But Mark then came, when I first saw him, I think it was the fifth time I saw him in Norwich. He was overweight, he was bloated, he was out of breath. Still amazing. T Rex was still amazing. It was incredible to see them. But a year later, when he started the Mark shows on ITV at Granada, he'd lost all the weight. He was back to looking fantastic like Mark. And he was very clever because he knew there'd been 5, 6, 7 years of glam rock, which they had, and he'd been very successful. But things were changing. Punk rock was coming in to play. So Mark, got bands like The Damned on his TV show very early. And I supported did some gigs with Alvin when they supported, I think the Damned supported him and one or two other punk bands. So Mark was very on the ball, and he did the Mark shows, and David Baby was on with him, and some amazing guests. And then tragically, after the series had finished, they'd signed a contract to do a second series because the Mark shows were so popular. Of course, Mark had the car crash, and that was the end of that, really. I mean, but a lot of music came out for 10 years later. Some guys run the fan club, and they managed to release a lot of new unreleased material, which I carried on buying. And I still play T Rex all the time. I love playing it on vinyl as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the day the car crash happened,
Hmm.
um, what was your first reaction
Well,
having met Mark?
I was driving a car. I was driving a truck. I was still, because I had my building company as well. I was working with Alvin and other people. Building was my main income because you didn't make a lot of money in the music business. It was just a great way of life. So I was driving along the road, and we got news came on the radio that Mark had been killed in a car crash, and I was so shocked. I became mesmerised, and I swerved across the road. And I nearly had a head-on collision. A bloke got out the car screaming and shouting at me. I said, "I'm sorry, mate. I'm so sorry, so sorry. A friend of mine's just died." And I realised Mark actually wasn't a friend of mine. He was a pop star that I loved. You couldn't say he was my friend, but I felt like a friend had died or a family member because obviously Mark was such a big part of my life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was very sad for a lot of people, if you see what
Hmm.
I mean. I mean, so, but obviously, I guess having that happen, obviously, it prepared you for working with artists, like Lulu down the line. You worked with Lulu, obviously, you knew Susie Quandro. And then obviously, did you get to know her routine at that point once you'd worked with Alvin and
Well, when I
um
all the artists are different, really. I worked with Alvin, and he was a guy, obviously, and on the road with Alvin was different. And then when he introduced me to Lulu, Lulu asked me to do one show just one show in Stockton-on-Tees. Bear in mind, I lived in Birmingham, she lived in London. I had to drive to London to pick her up, drive for 5 and 6 hours to Stockton-on-Tees, do a show, and drive back again, and then drive back to Birmingham. So I was actually out of my house for 23 and a half hours to earn £20 back then. And it was only a one-off gig. They'd said to me their driver was ill and, the tour manager wasn't well. Yeah, I'll help you, I came recommended by Alvin. And then a couple of weeks later, I assumed the guy was still ill, and they asked me to do another couple of gigs, which was Bristol, I think, or more local. It wasn't that far. And then I finished up with Lulu for 6 years. And funny, I've just started my Life Story podcast. And today I did episode 13. You can get my podcast on Spotify. Just type in podcast Barry Tomes. And right from the age of 4, I talk about my entire career. And we're going to go, we think there'll be about 60 episodes because we're up to 13. And that's just when I started working with Lulu. So anyone that's interested in want to hear sort of, we only have an hour, unfortunately, tonight. But if anybody is interested and wants to have a listen, check out my Life Story podcast. They're fantastic. I can't believe that 53 years later I was doing something all because I went to a TV show with a free ticket,
I know, exactly. And I'm just getting that on the screen now for people. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So obviously, you obviously were with Lulu and stuff at the end of the day. And then obviously, as you went out of those years into sort of the 2000s, sort of thing, 1990s, 2000s,
Yeah.
what was your next career move?
Well, I worked with Lulu, obviously, as Lulu's tour manager. I'd worked with Alvin as his tour manager, and I run his fan club. I got to meet a lot of bands and a lot of clubs and a lot of venues. So even though I wasn't a manager or an agent at that point, I was just classed as a tour manager, really. I also opened a rare record shop called Yesterday's Music because I loved old music and I was, buying and selling it. I had a shop in Sally Oak for a long time. I started to go and see bands more, and bands asked me to come and see them because they thought I could help them. So when I didn't leave Lulu because I wanted to. I left Lulu because I knew I'd stay with Lulu for the rest of my life. And she's still touring now. She's doing some shows in November at the age of 75. But I wanted my own Lulu. I wanted to find my own star. And I found an artist, and I took the artist on tour in America. We were successful, called Norma Lewis. That was the first artist. The first band I managed was a band called Jealous Girl from Birmingham. And it's funny because two of the band that were in Jealous Girl, both finished up being in Alvin Stardust bands. So that was quite a connection, really. And I'm a friend. I'm a friend with one now who's in Robert Plant's band, Saving Grace. So you build these friendships up throughout the years, and they all change jobs and move to different things. So you get invited to different things. But I then started doing gigs with Norma, and we did really well in America from the word go. We got loads of work in America. I did the first tour I did in America with her in 1984. We did 19 flights in 21 days, and then over that next 6-7 years, I formed an agency called BT Management, an agency. And at one point we had 350 artists on our books, bands. We had a boxing kangaroo. We had a guy with a crocodile. We had solo artists. I used to book quite a lot of radio on DJ, Steve Wright, Gary Davis, DLT, all those. So that was the next move, was into agency and management, really. And that was never a plan. I was still building for the first 10, maybe 14 years-ish of my music career. I was building well because that was bringing in, I was getting 20 quid a day working with pop stars, but 100 quid a day building. So the building paid for me to do whatever I wanted to do. It let me take the time off when I wanted to. And then the agency developed, and I opened an office in Rubery, and I had an office there for about 4 or 5 years. And we just booked artists all over the world, really. I started taking artists to Portugal. I did a lot of work in Portugal, some work in Spain, more work in America. And then I then put a big showcase on at what was originally, it's now known, it was like the Dome. It's the O2 now, but it was the Dome. Before the Dome, it was the Night Out. And I persuaded them to let me put on some bands, although they had big cabaret artists on there. And I used to go to them shows every week. They put me, they gave me a Tuesday, and I put a band night on, and I had about 7 bands on. And funny enough, I was at the Jam House about 2 months ago, which was their 25th anniversary or something. And John was saying we got Barry Tomes in the audience, and one of the bands we got on tonight was the Red Lemon Electric Blues Band. I think are now just called the Red Lemons. They were performing at the Jam House, and he said Barry Tomes first put them on when I was managing the Dome, the Night Out in Birmingham. So it just evolves really. There's no set plan. I mean, I never expected to be a publicist, but I've probably made more money as a publicist than anything. And I certainly never expected to have my own radio show, which I do. I have a US 10 radio show, which I recorded today. And of course, you know, as a publicist, I work all over the world. And we're launching Rockefellers TV. This is Rockefellers. Look, it says I'm security, but I'm not really. I'll leave that to the big tall men. But then, of course, we're launching that TV channel. I'm teaching in a school in Coachella. A lot of musicians will know Coachella because of the Coachella Music Festival. Starting on the 5th of September, I'm starting to do some teaching at that school in Coachella in America. And it's a media centre, so we teach them to make films. I did make a documentary with them. They come and film some bands up a mountain with me last year, and that got broadcast on XPTV1 here in Birmingham. So I've never had a plan. I get up every morning, and every day is like Christmas Day in my life. I can't believe it. Today's no exception.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So today feels like Christmas Day, and
Every day
then
feels like Christmas Day in my life. That's why
yeah,
I have a Christmas in July party every July. I had one last month, and we get people to bring Santa a gift. Instead of getting a gift from Santa, we say, look, bring a present, sort of a boy, girl, whatever, and then we give them to the local charities. So we did one in Bromsgrove recently, and Catshill, I think it was, and that was amazing. We had Santa, we had all the Christmas stuff out. We had thousands of presents, which are all being shipped out to the Ukraine in December for the kids out there. So I've never really had a plan. I've always been a workaholic. I've always been an entrepreneur, because I don't think entrepreneurs are made. I think you're born an entrepreneur. You can become a successful businessman, or woman. You can become good at the job you've chosen or the career. But I think an entrepreneur is born, and that's why at the age of 6, 7, I was chopping up firewood, and I realised at the age of 8 I could sell that fire, because every house on my council estate at that point, they all had fires. I mean, I've got an open fire going now in my cottage, you know, because it's chilly tonight, burning logs. But every single house had an open fire. There was no central heating, you know. I'm older than God's dog, for Christ's sake. Back then we had, you know, we only had a fire that we lit. So I think I was selling bundles of firewood for about 10p. And I thought, this is money. You can make money doing this. Then I started selling press studs door to door and anything I could, really. And I started snow sweeping, and then I had 2 paper rounds, not one, I had 2. So I've always been an entrepreneur, and every day I get up and try and do new things, and I try and help new people. Like, you know, we've joined you a few times to encourage you to try and keep going and, you know, build up your career as well. So I'm happy to give back. I love it. I've been very fortunate in my life.
well, that's great. That's absolutely great. That's great. And obviously, there'll be people watching this thinking, I'm in the music. I want to be in the music industry. I want to be in TV. I want to be in radio.
Mm.
Even myself, I
Yeah,
want to be. I
yeah,
want to be in radio. I
yeah.
want to be one of those big names. I'm not afraid to say it. So, what advice would you give for people out there like me and other people who
Well,
really,
first,
really,
yeah, what I would say first of all is it's not like working in Aldi or working on a building site or in an accountant's. The jobs aren't advertised in the music business. They're very rarely advertised. There is a newspaper called The Stage, which advertises for artists for some shows, but the jobs generally aren't advertised. You know, like I didn't get an advert and go and work for Alvin or Lulu or all the other several thousand artists I work with. I've never once applied for the job. I've got the job through word of mouth. The things that are important, in my opinion, is, and I don't want to sound like dad here, but I'm going to just be honest with you. Number
yeah, yeah,
one,
yeah,
whatever you choose in the media business, the media now more than ever, because it's 24 hours and we've got the internet, is faster moving than it's ever been. So number one, punctuality. If you're going to be there at 10, get there at 9:30 and have a coffee and be ready. Don't be late, because they won't wait. And secondly, is to be presentable. Don't turn up smelling. Don't turn up looking like a tramp. I mean, wear weird clothes, wear fashion, be exuberant with the way you look, but be clean and be punctual are the first two things. And more importantly, you've got to figure out what you're good at, because people come to me and say, I want to be in the music business, I really want to be in a band, and you'll listen. I say, well, you're not that good. You can't play guitar very well. You're young, keep going, you may do better. And I remember Ed Sheeran playing a cassette on I think it was John Ross show, and he said, look, I was crap back in the day, but I kept going and kept practicing, and he's now obviously a multimillionaire worldwide star. But the thing about it is to be good to people, come up with creative ideas. And if you see someone you like who you want to work with, it's much easier now because of the internet. You can find most people on social media, not everyone, but most people, even some of the big stars. I mean, when the Rolling Stones go onto things like TikTok, you know that TikTok's important. You aren't necessarily dealing directly with the Rolling Stones or with Robert Plant or whatever. It's usually a publicist like me or a management agency that's running their socials. But you can usually make contact with them with a good idea. Local radio is always good to go to. They're always looking for volunteers. Hospital radio used to be a great way. I remember Peter Powell used to do hospital radio in Stourbridge when I was a kid, and that he finished up on Radio 1. I was with Mike Reed, the old Radio 1 DJ, last week, and he's got an heritage chart now that he does every week and a TV show with it. He was on hospital radio, and he's 74 now, and he's still doing television and radio. The other thing is, don't watch the clock. If you're what I call a clock watcher, you're no good in this business, because you can't say, oh, I have to go home at 5 because my dinner will be burnt, or I must be in at 6 because my wife will tell me off, or my boyfriend or girlfriend won't be happy. If that controls your life, then you won't succeed, because you have to be selfish. I've been very, very, very lucky, and I've been married for 41 years to a woman who I met on tour with Lulu. She fully understood my career when she met me. She was working as a stage, and she finished up moving to Birmingham, Scotland, finished up being a policewoman for 30 years and doing scenes of crime. So you have to be selfish in the sense of, I've missed a lot of funerals, I've missed a lot of christenings, I've missed weddings, I've certainly missed a lot of birthdays, because I had to be at that gig that day on that date at that time, and there's no point at all in agreeing to do stuff if you say, oh, I can't go today, it's my birthday. Well, it doesn't matter. The music business don't wait. So, punctuality, cleanliness, great ideas, a vision, a good understanding of the timeline of what you want to do. Like if you want to do gigs, you're most likely going to be working in the afternoon and evening and getting back late at night. If you want to do a radio show, you can often get the late night shows where people don't want to do overnight and stuff. If you want to be big on radio, you want the breakfast show or drive time. They're the two biggies. They're the ones that get you the bucks. But also, don't rely, especially as a musician, this is really aimed at musicians. When you go and do a gig and you take your family and they all want to be free, and the local gig thinks, oh, they all want to come in free, but hopefully they'll buy drinks. That's no good. That's no good. You need people who are going to pay, because you need to earn money. So all your family and friends really need to pay in the beginning, and then when you're a big star, you can put them all on your guest list. I went to a Robert Plant guest gig a couple of years ago, and the guest list was about 150. More than most small venues hold. So you have to also, as well as thinking, right, I won't rely on my family to tell me I'm good, because all your family will tell you you're good. They'll tell you you're great when you're not. And when they do, one thing that frustrates me a lot is when you have a talent competition, and I've been a judge on many, but most of the judges aren't professional people. They're just the local bus driver or somebody's dad or somebody that works behind the bar. But I'm a professional judge. And you sit there and they judge based on who screams the loudest. Oh, they must be the best band because they scream the loudest. I said, no, they brought the most people. That doesn't make them the best band. So if you want to find out if you're good, go to somewhere that nobody knows you. Try and get support with a local band and see if you can win fans that like you because they like you, not because you're their son or daughter. Because then there's no real judgment there. Your mum says you're great, I love you. Your nan says you're brilliant, I'll buy all your records. That is not the reality of the situation. You've got to get strangers to like you, and having 2 million likes on Facebook means nothing at all. You can buy all that stuff. I would rather have 100 people follow me on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, but those 100 people, when I do a gig in the winter, they will trudge through the snow, miss the last bus home to come and see me, rather than the 2 million that will just click like and they haven't even read what you posted really. They've just clicked like because they want to be popular.
Yeah, and exactly. And what would you say to these companies, like media companies that post jobs at the end of the day? Would you say that is the same thing almost? That, you have to sort of almost go by the job listings and
Well,
actually.
no. Most places, if you go to most radio stations and television stations, first of all, the jobs are advertised internally because that's the rule. You have to, by law, offer the job to people, but most of the time, by the job, it's the Birmingham Evening Mail or whatever paper you buy locally, the Manchester Evening News or the Coventry Telegraph. By the time those jobs are advertised, they've really gone. They only advertise because they're legally required to. But most jobs, in my experience, go to someone internally or by recommendation. And 99%, say 95% of my jobs have come by recommendation and 5% have come by luck. I've been in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, that is really interesting to know at the end of the day. So a lot of it is about recommendation,
Yeah, and
about
you get recommended if you're punctual, you're clean, you're bright, you're good, you don't moan about the time, you don't moan because you've missed your coffee break, and you don't say, I'm going to see the union because I need lunch at 12. Do all that rubbish and you're going to get nowhere in the music business. The music business is like no other business. It's unique. It's not like selling tractors or building houses. Every time it's different. When you build a house, you always put the foundations in first and you get the walls up and then you put the roof on. Always. In the music business, you put a girl band together and they're successful, like the Spice Girls. And I remember when they were really big first in Japan, everybody then puts a girl band together and don't understand why they're not successful. It's because you've copied the last phase. You've got to be the new you, not the next Spice Girl or the next Dua Lipa or the next T-Rex. You've got to be the new you. You've got to be the first you, and that's how you succeed. And another thing that is hard to accept, but it's very important, you may not be good enough to do what you want to do. So if you say, and I run seminars for years and years giving free advice to people. So I want to be in the music business. What do you want to do? I just want to be in the music business. Well, can you sing? Yeah, I sing a bit and I play guitar. So perhaps I should form a band. Well, hang on a minute. Do you know anything about the music business? Oh, yeah, I know every Rolling Stones record. I know all the hits. I know all the number ones. I know members of all the bands. Well, maybe you should be a journalist in the music business and not a musician. And it's about, when I was a kid, everybody formed a band because they wanted to get a girl. The guys, and it was mostly guys, there wasn't many girl bands around. The guys would join a band because they wanted to get a girl. And that was how it worked. And even nightclubs back in the day, girls were allowed in free before 10 o'clock because then all the lads would come and pay because the nightclub would be full of girls. And it's about boy meets girl, a lot of it, and it always was. However, as that's changed, you've got to say, right, am I in a band to meet girls? Am I in a band to be rich? Am I in a band to become a better musician? Or do you want to be in the music business? Now, a successful career to me is not a world tour, then nothing for 20 years. A successful career for me is when you're still doing it 50 years later, you're still loving it 50 years later, you're still making money at it 50 years later, and you're getting invited onto shows like yours. That means you're doing okay.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you put my show down
No,
as
it's
one of the.
important. No, Alice, sweetheart, it's really important because this morning I was on the phone to America dealing with our American record company because they're 8 hours behind. So it was like midnight there. No, 10 p.m. there. It was 6 a.m. here. I then had to prepare my radio show, which I recorded today, fit in a quick trip to the dentist. I then had to come back and do more work on the American show. I had to do some notes for my podcast, which I've just done one, so there'll be another one done in a couple of weeks' time. Then I had to contact you to say, right, I'm on your show, and your being on your show is equally important to me as being launching a television channel next week in America. It's equally as important to doing my own radio show today, and it is equally important as my podcast that is my life story, because we're all part of that team. And if you don't get that and you think anybody's worse or better, they may not be as good as you, but then it doesn't mean they don't deserve a chance. It don't deserve, I'm always willing to help people and give them a lift up, and I'm, notorious for that. But we're all a team, and my day, when I say today was like Christmas Day, and I write it down in my diary, will be, and it won't be the finish. After I finish with you, I've got to talk to America again because it's only the afternoon there now, so the office is still open. In my diary will be, I had a great chat to Alice on her show, and that will be as equally as important when I get round to that podcast in however many years' time as it is about doing my radio show, and that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, it's really good advice. So every even little opportunity, you should take it as.
Well, Let me tell you about opportunities. Opportunities don't make appointments; they come along. Now, people talk about luck, and as I said to you, probably about 5% of my jobs and business has come from just being in the right place at the right time and luck. But there's a little bit of a twist to that as well. Yes, you just happen to be in the room when somebody wanted something, and that happens. And but luck, in my opinion, first of all, you got to believe in luck, because if you don't believe in it, it won't come your way. It's like you've got to believe in it. Secondly, you got to have a little bit of faith, and that's faith in you and faith in whatever God you talk to, or don't. If you don't, whatever higher being you look up to, whether it be your mum or your picture of the Queen or whatever is the thing that you look up to, you've got to think about that, have a little faith, but also you've got to be prepared, because the real truth, luck, the real luck, you can have a four-leaf clover, a rabbit's foot, whatever, touch wood. In reality, Alice, luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. So if you're prepared and an opportunity comes in front of you, you grab it. If you're not prepared, the opportunity carries on to the next person. So please remember, everybody listening, opportunities don't make appointments.
No, no, they don't
No,
make appointments.
no.
I mean, yeah. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. If an opportunity comes to you,
Be ready
then
for it. What
you'll
is that
just.
opportunity? Be ready for it. Learn what you need to learn before you go. As I say, when I talk about luck, I was Lulu's road manager. I went to a club in London called the Valbonne, met a guy, Steve Rowland, that run the showcase. He was in a meeting the next day with the publisher, who was with a record company that represented Norma Lewis, and she said, "We've got some shows in America, but I won't go unless you get me a proper tour manager." They said, "Well, what would you call a proper tour manager?" She said, "Well, who works for Lulu? I'd like somebody like that." Now, she didn't know me at all, but she knew that Lulu had a big stature. And she said, Steve Rollins said, "Well, funny enough, it's funny you say that. I know Lulu's tour manager really well. I'll give him a call and see if he wants to have a meeting." We had a meeting in London the following week. 2 weeks later, I was on my first ever tour in America. Opportunity. I was ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I didn't plan that. And I managed Norma for 30 years, and we toured America 5 times.
and I mean, people obviously that go and study music degrees and media
Yeah.
degrees. Would you say the same to them then if they're in a degree and an opportunity comes up, just grab it and stuff?
Well, my own opinion of most music and media degrees is they're just an easy degree to get on. It's the one that sounds sexy, and it's easy to get on because you don't have to be a scientist, and you don't have to have 74 A levels and 2 O levels and a bleeding spirit level. You just get on them. A lot of them, in my experience, are not run by music industry people. That's why I started doing my advice classes 15 years ago, because I said, look, I'm watching this talk that this teacher's giving, and he's reading it from a book. So when I said, well, what did you do? He said, oh, I used to be a plumber. Well, what's that got to do with music business? Oh, nothing, but I'm a teacher. So
Yeah.
basically, you're teaching what you're reading in a book. That's not the right way. You need at least part of your education, not all of it, because teachers are valuable, and I love school. And I love what teachers give us all. But part of that education, whether it be 1 day a week, 1 week, 1 day a month, should be, you should be have work experience with the person or people that have worked in the industry that you want to be in. Not someone that says, oh yeah, I'm a music teacher. I teach music. well, no, you read about music and you teach what happened. Well, I could read that myself. I can go on the internet and search that. I need someone that's experienced the music business like me, like a Barry, and I need them to at least give me the benefit of their experience and be honest and say, you're no good at that. You're not any good at guitar. You can't sing, but you'd be a great journalist in the music business. Now go and live your life as a journalist rather than a musician because you'll go further.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny you say about being a music journalist because that is something that I would like to do.
Hmm.
I would like to because I just find it fascinating interviewing people, researching people and stuff like that. Um,
Well, the research is a lot easier now because you've got the internet, whereas before you had to go to a library and get out a book and study or buy a magazine. And a lot of my music knowledge came from Musical Express in the 70s or the Sounds magazine, or I even used to buy a girls magazine called Jackie, which was phenomenal. It was a big pop star magazine. And that's where I learned my stories about the pop stars. Um, I didn't really go to the library much, although I did finish up teaching in libraries and giving free seminars about the music industry. I I had to learn. Now you can do your research on the internet, so you can do it 24 hours. You don't have to wait till the library opens. You don't have to take a book out and get fined when you take it back late. But what you do have to do when you go on the internet is fact check things. When you read something, don't assume that's a fact on Wikipedia. Do two or three other sources and see if the information is exactly the same or at least similar. Because if not, you'll finish up misleading people as a journalist, and they'll come back at you at some point. So you told me Mark Bolan was born there, or Mark Bolan was French, but no, he's actually English. He was a Jew, and he was born in London. In Golders Green. So fact checking is easy, research is a lot easier, but you do have to just. I'm a journalist as well. I'm a member of the National Institute of Journalism and the Chartered Institution of Journalism. Sorry, and I'm a legal journalist and I have a special passes and things, but I am also what you call a trusted source. If I ring up the newspaper like the Sun and say I've just seen so and so, and this happened, they will print the story because I'm a trusted source. If you rung in or somebody else rung in, they say, well, we don't know Fred who's just called, but let's find out. Let's call Barry or let's call Sid or Fred or Bill or Shirley and see if it's the truth. And then all of a sudden, six people are confirming the story. So they print it, but by the time they've got the story from six people, it's already out online anyway. So I've become a trusted source because I've done a lot of media, a lot of press. I was in a New York magazine myself last month with one of my podcasts. Billboard magazine, which people who know American music is like Music Week, and it's the sort of big journal where they have the Hot 100 and all the major stars are in it. I was featured in that this month as well because I've got a Christmas album out with some American artists, and I sent a review in, and they printed that in the Billboard, which was astonishing. I did an interview last night with the Desert Sun, which is a newspaper that goes out in by Coachella and Indio, Rancho Mirage, and Palm Springs. I've done an interview for them last night. So, I'm doing this stuff all the time and constantly, all the time.
yeah, exactly. That's great. That's fantastic. Okay, Barry. You sent in a track from an artist, obviously that you
Yeah.
represent. You do. So can you tell us about him and obviously his music?
Well, the artists that I sent you tracks in are called Whitewater. They're from Palm Springs and they're a great rock band. And I first met them at a place called Pappy and Harriet's about 7 years ago. The one guy was 14 or 13, I think, at the time. He then was in a band called Pesca Territory, which we helped, and then they split up because teenagers grow up and they all have different things they want to do, and they get girlfriends, and the band don't stay together. They're in a new band called Whitewater, and they're a phenomenal rock band. And it, to try and give you a gauge, as I said to you, I don't want bands to be the new this or the new Beatles or the new Stones. I want them to be original. This band and they're called Whitewater, and they're headed up by Jason Zembo. Now, if somebody said to me, and you always get asked, well, who are they like? Give us a clue. Who would you say they're like? And I would have to say they're as good as Led Zeppelin. And that's a pretty big thing to say. They're not just another rock band. The songs are phenomenal. The band are phenomenal. They're hungry, and they're ready to tour the world. And they're doing quite a lot of shows. I'll see them next week sometime. And we've sent you in some songs. I think maybe you're going to play one. Have you decided which one you want to play?
Yes. The one you just mentioned, actually, I don't think I've got, but I know I've got the Simon one. You sent in at the end of the day.
Oh, well, is this Simon Astley? Is this Simon Astley?
Yeah.
Well, Simon Astley is another artist that I work with and manage from Australia. And Simon, again, I've known him about 7 years, I would say. Probably 10 years with Simon. Probably 10 years. And he's from Australia, and he's been over to the UK and toured. We've had him on the Monica Price show over here. We had one of his songs played at the Queen's Silver Jubilee. And Simon Astley, for me, is a typical hard-working musician, because he actually works on cruise ships, and he goes away on cruises for 4 weeks at a time. He'll do 4 weeks on a cruise and work on that cruise ship. I think he books the rooms and assigns the apartments. But then when he comes off for 4 weeks, he works as a musician. And he took a year out about just before COVID, I think it was, and while his son was really, really young, and he went off on tour for a year. He got a year out from his job. So if you're playing the Simon Astley track, then brilliant, because Simon's an absolute superstar. I love him.
That is great. Well, we're going to play him now. We are. So yeah.
Okay, what song are you playing?
OMG.
Okay. Now, the funny thing about that is the artist in the video for that is from the Ukraine, and Simon is clued up. And of course, OMG, oh my God, it's very trendy. It's very on point. He sounds a bit like Bowie at times, and he's more serious. But this is where he just felt he'd written a song in 2 minutes, and it could be massive. So, please play OMG by Simon Astley. And I hope it's been interesting for some people. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And honestly, a personal thank you for inviting me. I'm always pleased to do stuff. I'm always happy. I travel a lot, so it's hard to pin me down sometimes. But once I say I'll do something, I will do something. And thank you. And good luck with all you do. You work really hard. You're conscientious, and you've got lots of good ideas. So you should do really, really well. So
yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, OMG, Simon Astley, take it away.
Well, I'm gonna play the track, and then we're gonna come out and do the outro.
Okay.
OMG, look at me, OMG, look at me. I'm the Instagram story, looking on me. OMG, look at me, OMG, look at me. I'm the Instagram story, looking on me. We're so low-key, that's you and me. On social media, we're on the fly, that's how we roll. Check out the sites, we need the likes. Our posts are waiting for you. You're hanging on just a little bit. OMG, look at me, OMG, look at me. On the Instagram story, looking on me. OMG, look at me, OMG, look at me. On the Instagram story, looking on me. It's only 9, it's selfie time. Throw ourselves out of bed, ready to school, that's how we roll. No dressing gown when we're in town. For photo opportunity, you're hanging on just a little bit. OMG, look at me, OMG, look at me. I'm the Instagram story, hope you don't ignore me. OMG, look at me, OMG, look at me. I'm the Instagram story, hope you don't ignore me. La 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 la. OMG, I know. OMG, I know. look at me. I'm an Instagram story. Hope you don't ignore me. OMG, look at me, look at me. OMG, look at me. I'm an Instagram story. Hope you don't ignore me. OMG, look at me, look at me. OMG, look at me. I'm an Instagram story.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello. We are back. Right, the mics are muted.
Yeah, did you see? Thanks, Ricky, for your comments. I just held up the signed picture of Mark Bolan for Ricky to see. Did you see that?
Oh, yes. I'm sure he will
Look,
absolutely love it.
That's it. That's the signed picture of Mark Bolan.
I'm sure he'll absolutely love it. Absolutely love it at the end of the day. And yeah, last question, Barry, at the end of the day. So, if you could give advice, like for people to wake up tomorrow and do one thing to improve their career, what would it be?
Get up early.
That's advice.
Well, the early bird catches the worm.
That's advice I need, I tell you, because I'm struggling getting out of bed at the moment in the early
I'm always
morning.
working at 5 a.m. on the press. The early bird gets the worm. Get up early. You've got one life. Live it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we can give a big shout out to Simon Astley, and thanks, Simon, because I know he lost his mum a couple of weeks ago and he's really down at the minute. So, Simon, God bless you, man. We love you. And thanks for letting us use your song.
No problem. That is absolutely fine at the end of the day. And yes, if you would like to be on Musician Chat, then by all means, you can go on the page or email musicianchat@gmail.com or on the Instagram or on the Facebook as well. Remember, also, this show takes donations. So if you are a viewer and you would like to donate to the program, you can go to the link on the screen, which I've just got to find. Wait a minute. It is https://co-fi.com/musician chat. Join us next week.
Send us your money. Send us your money.
Yes,
Come on,
yes,
girl, do well.
Yes, thank you, Barry. Barry's now the presenter of this program. Barry, would you like this job?
No, sweetheart, I've got far too many jobs and you're doing too much of a good job of it yourself, darling. So thanks for having me on and thank you for everybody that tuned in. And can people watch this again? Is it available on Catch Up?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is certainly. It's certainly. Yes, it is absolutely.
Well, send me a link and I'll make sure Simon in Australia gets it, and I'll post it on my socials as well.
Yeah.
All right, darling.
Yeah.
Thank you, love. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you very much.
You.
Join us next week to find out who we have on Musician Chat. Same time, 8 o'clock on Wednesday as well. And we've got some really good people coming up for you, including in the next couple of weeks, you'll get the chance to sit in the audience. You will do. So just like Barry's doing, 8 people can come and sit in the audience and watch the show. So I will be putting a post up when actually people can actually do that. If you see what I mean. Ricky says all the best, Barry, at the end of the day.
Thank you, Ricky. Thanks, mate. Thanks for tuning in.
And it is all the best from us at Musician Chat until next week.
Thank you. Good night. God bless. Thank you.
It's been great fun having you along. It is. And until next week, all that's left for me to say is have a fantastic week. And I need to play the outro now of the actual show. So all that's left for me to say is good night, everyone. And I shall see you next week.